Today, I'm in conversation with Edith WeUtonga Katiji, singer-songwriter, president of the Zimbabwean Musicians Union, and the vice president of the International Federation of Musicians. If you enjoy this episode, remember to subscribe, to like, and share. Let's get down to some work. Greetings! Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor UK series, brought to you by the Nyaradzo Group. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. If you enjoy this series, remember to subscribe, to like, and to share. Let's get down to some work. Edith WeUtonga Katiji, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
I wish people were aware at home that I battled to get through your name, but I'm glad I finally got it. So Edith, you've had an amazing career. You formed your band, Utonga Band. What year was that?
2008, I had the idea that we were going to have this band. I think it was in April that I sat down with the music producer and I said, look, I want us to change the name, because prior to that, I'd been in an all-female band from Amakosi called Amakosikazi, and the name was a project name, and with something called So What just before that. Like, so what's next?
Yeah.
And so I sat down with him and I said, I want us to think about a name and record new music. July of that year, I was involved in a head-on collision. And I was in hospital for a while. And then...
How long?
I think over a month I was in hospital. 2 weeks of that time, I was in a coma. And the first thing that I saw when I woke up in that hospital bed, Kupari, was the lights coming through the window. And that's how the name came about, as I remember sitting like that. I thought, okay, I'm alive. I've just woken up and realizing where I was and being told, oh, it's been 2 weeks and there's people around me. And that's how the name was born. So 2010, in March, released the first album of the band, Utonga. And it was a group of people that had been with me on this journey for a while. Yeah.
People say, episodes like that where you get very close to death, have a transforming effect on our lives. Has that been the experience with you? Do you come back and have a relook at who you are and what you've been doing?
I think the purpose shifts, really, because sometimes you're thinking, I've got all the time to do the things that I want to do, and then realize like that it could be gone. And so there was a lot of shifting of things, because there was a lot of things that were confusing me up to this day, because I don't remember what happened. I keep asking questions, and I remember calling my uncle and saying, did people come to the hospital and sing for me? Because I come from a very musical family, and initially when the accident happened, I was in Kadoma Hospital before we were transferred to Harare. And my uncle said, oh yeah, people from the church, my grandmother's church, they came and sang. I said, oh, I do remember seeing them, but I don't remember who came to sing for me, because from the point where I was, all I could see were heads singing down. So I was looking and there were heads and they were singing to me laying there. And I couldn't really explain that up to this day. Then I realized, I was gone, because from the point where I could see people singing, and yet I was supposed to be laying in bed. And he said, oh yeah, so and so and so and so came.
So what shift happened in terms of your purpose, in terms of the way you look at your
I
life?
think before that, it was like, when you write songs, you're writing songs for fun. You're not really thinking about, so what's the song going to be about, and take a serious look at things. I started looking at, if I'm looking at you now, I'm not just looking at Ubaba Ncube, but I'm trying to look into your eyes and seeing what makes you and what are the things that define you and why you do the things that you do. And in the end, my music has been termed political, I've been called arrogant, because of the music that I write and the issues that I talk about in the music that I write. And so my purpose was, if I'm going to be going out there to sing, I'm not going to be planning on bubblegum that people forget, but I want that the people that encounter my music understand the purpose of the song and why the song was written.
So what messages are you trying to convey to your audience through your message? You're saying people are saying you're political, you're arrogant.
Yeah.
What messages are you trying to portray?
Well, for some, there are particular songs or a song that has been called political. And I remember when the album was released, a few radio and, DJs saying to me, this song won't play. And I said, why?
Which
because
one was
the
that
song
one?
is called Hutungamiri. And Hutungamiri is questioning Hutungamiri Chi. And then me saying it's moving forward with your people and making sure that you're moving with them. Because if you don't, and you keep walking, one day you look back and find they're gone. And the headline in the newspaper, I think it was the Daily or Newsday, one of the papers said, WeUtonga challenges bad governance. There was Wamgabe, there was Wamtambara, there was Wachankirai. And the song just didn't play, And
This song didn't play. What
like
did that,
on
what did
radio.
that do to you? Yeah, what did that do to you? You this is your creation. You
Yeah.
wanted it to play, but
Yeah.
it's not playing.
I think it registered, that I'm not that musician who is going to be favored in certain spaces, or that I shouldn't even look to people liking me.
Did that do anything to you? Were you okay with that?
I wasn't affected because I think most of our money as musicians doesn't come from airplay. Airplay on its own in Zimbabwe is an issue because musicians are not getting their royalties, for example. And so it was the concern of, am I going to be identified as blue or white, black or white? And how does that affect me and the way I live my life? And for sure, you'd get calls on, it's like, why are you refusing to do that? Or is it because, And I'm like, look, I'm a musician and I stand for what I stand for.
So there's pressure.
There's always
from
pressure.
Politicians for you to side with them?
I don't want to say from politicians, but here's an incident. I was driving home. I lived in Hillside then. And right at the traffic lights on Mutare Road, a car stopped on our side and said, WeUtonga. I said, yes, Magadi. So you've refused to come and play Magala, And for me, I was like, I have never been called to play at a gala. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah. And then I went. And for sure, I received a phone call to go and play at a gala. And I think I have been defined as that person who you cannot be sure of what they're going to say in front of a microphone and in front of an audience. And I've been called to certain events. And I think they do this process of vetting. And I failed. I failed without knowing what exactly it is that I failed. But I don't think
Does that bother you?
It's quite interesting for me. It doesn't bother me. I'm just thinking, but why would people be afraid of what I might say? What will I say? Because I believe that the things that I say are things that are meant to be said. If I'm singing about it, then it's meant to be sung about. Leadership is not just political. It's in every institution. So why are we worried about what I will say in front of people if I'm given that platform? Yeah.
You say you come from a musical family. You just talk to me about where the influence has come from as far as your singing is concerned, your music career.
On my mother's.
Uyahlabela, Ambuya wanoimba, who else?
Sengathi the whole family lapho kuzalwa khona umama kwakuhlatshelwa vele, so my grandmother my maternal, my grandfather, my uncles were conductors in the choir. Let me just say that family where if something happened in the family and you didn't go to church, you'd fill the gaps, because my grandfather and grandmother were in the Madara choir. We were in the youth choir. I was a soloist
Which
in the youth
church is
choir.
this?
CCAP.
CCAP. What does CCAP stand for? Sorry.
Church of Central Africa Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's where I was raised by my maternal grandmother in Kadoma. And so things like harmony, things like having that musical ear came naturally because I was always surrounded by music. When you wake up, it's music because there's devotion time at 5 in the morning. Before you go to bed, it's the same thing. And then there's choir practice on Tuesday, quartet practice on Thursday, Saturday youth practice, and Sunday we're in church.
So you were destined to be in this space.
In the space.
Yeah.
And then on my father's side, my father played trombone for Love Moma Jaivana.
Wow.
You know,
What was his name?
Frank.
Frank.
So it's been there in the blood.
Wow.
And unavoidable, really. And yeah.
Talk to me about your creative process. I mean, your first album was Utonga, and then Runyararo, and then Kwacha. How do you go through the creative process? What are the moments that form your songs, your lyrics, and that kind of stuff?
It takes a while, I've noticed. My first album was in 2010. My second album was in 2013.
3 years.
And my third album was in 2015. And I'm currently working on my fourth album. And so Utonga was the first light of day, and putting into consideration the things that I've gone through in life. And I suppose sounding my arrival on the musical space, because prior to that I'd been in this project with Amakosi and Amakosikazi, and then I was with Tanga Okosando before I launched my career. And then 2013 Runyararo was a collaboration between myself, Japraise Asulumani, and Chuoneso Maraire the late. And it was an album that was there to encourage people to go and vote, but vote in peace. And so we're like the peace ambassadors on the artistic side. And then I did my third album, which got Best Album for the Bulawayo Arts Awards. And the process generally has been that I look at the purpose. Again, why am I doing this album? And if I don't need to, I won't. So if it's 3 songs, I'll do 3 songs. So on Kwacha, It Is Day, because I think on my first album, I got like a 5-star review in the press, and I had traveled to festivals. I'd headlined festivals in Africa, in Zimbabwe, and It Is Day was like, right, here we are. And unfortunately, I couldn't do much marketing and traveling for that album because my son had a heart issue that needed me to take him to India. And so I took a break from all that, and that album didn't really see the day in the way that I had anticipated.
How is your son doing now?
Oh, he's turning 12 in October, and he's in year 7, and he's doing fine.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you
That's
for
good
asking.
to hear.
Yeah, he's doing fine.
That's good to hear. We will take a break here.
Yeah.
When we come back, I want us to go to... I love the work that you do with refugees, the work that you do with women that have been trafficked, and indeed your experience in the diaspora, and that what all that means. So at home, don't you go away. We will be back. See you on the other side.
I felt their pain, you know, and I didn't want to ask what it was that they went through, but it was very touching. And then I realized sometimes we take for granted the things that we do.
Welcome back to our UK series. And I'm talking to Edith WeUtonga Katiji, singer-songwriter, the president of the Zimbabwean Musicians Union, and the vice president of the International Federation of Musicians. So you are in the diaspora. How long have you been in the diaspora?
Since 2019. So that's why.
Talk to me about what caused you to move from Zimbabwe to the diaspora.
So in 2016, I embarked on my first degree, music, business, musicology, and technology. And during that time,
Where was that?
the Midland State University. So it took one visit to MSU, and one doctor there, the department head, said to me, you could be doing a lot of things, but because your experience is just based on your performance, there are certain gaps that you cannot, step into because you're missing just that thing, that paper, I went back home and I said, he's right, So in next January, I enrolled, 2016. So I was doing visiting school over the holidays when children are on holiday.
At MSU?
At MSU. And that took a lot of time as well and commitment, because then I was away from performances. Weekends are for performances and I was going to school. And then during that time, I used to hang around. My class was a class of, I want to say there were 16 teachers and 2 musicians. One was a classical musician and myself. And so I used to hang around 3 teachers. And this gentleman, one was based in some rural area in Zimbabwe, another one in Plumtree, as well in Zimbabwe, and another one in Botswana. And we sat in the dormitories, the common room, and we agreed to apply for a master's degree because, what's the next step? This challenge is done. We're almost done. So what's the next step? And so we're looking through universities and then started the applications. And I think all 3, I want to believe all of us were applying, and the other one said, I need to get a new passport. So Ndichambomira. And I carried on applying. And I used my, I think, mid-year or first semester of the final year results, and I just submitted. And then I started getting responses. And then in August, I think it was, or maybe mid-year, I saw an application for a scholarship, because then I realized the fees were too high. And I applied. Everything was like, don't go try. I sent in my application. I was shortlisted. And then I got a call. We are giving you the full scholarship and your choice of university, which is the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London.
Wow.
We're paying. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
And when it came, I think most people had been announced, and those that were going on Chevening were going. And I was thinking, maybe nothing is going to happen. So I called them. I said, you shortlisted me and I haven't heard from you. And someone said to me, it means vakatosarudza munhu wawokudhara, So I called them and I said, I sent an application. You told me I was shortlisted. What's the news now? This was August. And then they said, we're going to send you an email. So I received an email. I remember I was crossing Chiremba Road, the railway line there, when I opened the email, and they said, congratulations. And I was screaming in the car. And suddenly everything shifted, because it dawned on my husband that, she's leaving. So are you going to take it? Yes, I'm going. And September, I was checking in at school in the UK. And
which part were you staying?
The Russell Square, because the residency was in London right there. And then the lockdown happened.
Oh,
so I had September to March of going to school, and it was nice. Everything there was amazing, and we're looking forward to performances, because then I was majoring in a different instrument completely as well. And then the lockdown happened. And so I moved in to live with my friend in Kingston. And this friend of mine, we'd been together on theatre stages in Zimbabwe before she moved to the UK, way before I did. And she said, you know what, you can come and live with me and the children. And so...
You and the children?
No, her children.
Her children, okay.
Yeah, my children were still in Zimbabwe. And there was that You know,
gap.
the lockdown is happening and I don't know if I'm going to see my children again. No one knew what was going to happen. And I was in a mental, you know, space where I was like, what if, you know? And then, of course, my studies were completed online. And one of my lecturers said to me, you know, we were just discussing with Professor so-and-so and thought, if time remains the way, things remain the way they are, would you consider staying? And we're looking at this opportunity and that opportunity and that opportunity. I was like, oh, okay, you know? And they sent me links and I looked at exceptional global talent because they said you tick all the boxes. So look at it and tell us what you think. So I did. And of course, I was ticking most, if not all of the boxes for exceptional global talent visa. And that's how I switched from student visa to exceptional global talent. You know, Arts Council England looked at my papers, endorsed, and everything else was easy, I think. Took about 10 days or 14, and it was that.
So talk to me about your experience
Yeah.
in the diaspora.
Yeah.
What has it been like? The pros and cons
Yeah.
of being in the diaspora.
I think as a performer, first of all, the spectrum or the space is different. How people conduct business to start with is different. And it doesn't help or didn't help for me because then the lockdown had happened and operations were only starting to open up. So I'd missed out on the time that I thought I would introduce myself here because the world was shut down and missing out on the opportunities at home as well, even though they were closed. But there were spaces that we could just say I'm around and I'm given a gig. I didn't have to worry about how I get a gig because I was always getting the call for a performance.
Wow.
And so coming here and living in the UK, it meant starting again in a way. There are people that would see my profile and say, okay, would like for you to come and perform here, perform there. And so my kickstart or my pedal, my trampoline became organizations that had heard about me from somebody. You know how it is. We're calling you because we heard you are in the UK. Would like for you to come and do this. And so it's been very corporate how I've been performing until I met someone at an event where I was working for this organization that I've been still working with. And there were people who were doing music in communities like, you know, detention centers, immigration, hotel accommodation. And I met Darren there and he wrote me an email and said, you know, I went through your profile. I think I want to work with you. I said, oh, okay. And 4 months down the line,
Darren?
Darren Abrams is a guy that runs an organization called Human Hive. And they do music therapy and they get into communities where, you know, sometimes maybe people in a way think, do they need this? Do they need that? Is music even important? And I found myself, you know, working.
Is this where you've played for women who've been trafficked?
Yes.
Refugees? Talk to me about that
Refugees, yeah.
experience and why you're drawn to that.
I think those from home that know me know Edith has been on a women agenda for a while. So even in Zimbabwe, I worked with organizations that were doing something to do with women, whether it's at that particular time or that's their agenda. And when I got here, because I live in Surrey, I was contracted to work with Surrey Arts. And through Darren, I met Jim, who works with Surrey Arts, and he said, you know what, I think you'd be an asset. And then he introduced me to this group and said, we have different projects around Surrey. Surrey is big. And one of them is for women that have been trafficked. Do you think you'd want to do something there? I said, okay. And they'd already been doing projects there. And then I turned up and in my bag was my mbira. And I was asked to play it. And some of the women, they identified with the sound. And that connection of, I don't know what it was, but this woman broke down and she started crying. And my connection with them was just my music and my mbira, but I felt their pain, you know? And I didn't want to ask what it was that they went through, but it was very touching. And then I realized sometimes we take for granted the things that we do. And as women, all sometimes in search of a life or just, providing for their children, they find themselves trafficked in a space where they don't know what the next day is going to be like. And we are here as musicians to provide a refuge, which is what I was doing.
So you get very emotional, and I can imagine. But I'm going to push you, if you don't mind, to go to that place. Before you came here, we're actually talking about this, that how do you have somebody who goes to bed and said, I made a profit from trafficking these people. This world is a weird world.
No, it is.
Talk to me about that place. You're playing for refugees. You're playing for these trafficked people. What's been the experience like for you?
I think, you look at yourself and think, if I had been in this space, would I have survived? And then think back to...
So you stop being a musician.
Exactly.
You
In
connect.
that moment, you connect to the person or the person that they're hiding, that they're trying not to bring out.
You remove the masks.
The mask is taken off. When you say the mask, I think of in 2016 and 17, I did a project for Doctors Without Borders. And it was about, the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And the documentary that we created there was called Masks. In the communities that we live in, the abuse, the trafficking is happening within the homes that someone is supposed to be feeling safe. Because whoever the parent, the grandmother, the aunt is pushing the child to, for them to get sustenance, for them to get everyday supplies in the house.
In Zimbabwe.
This is in Zimbabwe, And one of them was very young, a very young woman whose life changed completely. It's never been the same. They have been scarred by this. And in everything that they do, there's a reminder, a constant reminder that this is where you've come from. And for some of us, and when you look around, you're thinking, in a way, I am privileged. So in my little ways, what is it that I can do to bring hope, And every day a woman or a man is getting abused in their own home, So that is a space where I think it's the difficult things that we cover and we put all the makeup, but there are certain things that are happening in families that we don't talk about, and sometimes just an instrument with the music does it.
You've already mentioned the work that you do with Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, what the work entails.
Most of it has been using the art, the music as the key that starts the conversation. And when we went to Caledonia, I remember we were in a truck and playing loud music because we were trying to get people to some space and for them to come and have a conversation. And an old woman, almost 90, said, I hope in the conversations that you're having, you're talking about the rape that takes place in the home. And another man said, but how is it called rape if a couple is married? And one of us said, in everything that we're doing, because then my job was to coordinate and bring the artists together, bring the musicians to create a compilation of songs and record music, particularly for that project, and then getting them to help us start the conversations. And one of them opened up to me and said, in this thing that we've been doing, for a while now, I've been that man who's been abused in the house because my wife attacks me, she hits me, she does this, she does that. Wow. And then you realize that people are moving around, but they're carrying a lot. They're carrying a lot, and it's not just women. And as a mother of boys, you start thinking, but what if that was my son? And how can we create a platform where we talk about these things?
How many boys do you have?
I have 3 boys.
3 boys.
Yeah.
Any girls?
2 girls.
2 girls.
Yeah. So this work especially for Doctors Without Borders, in their minds, the campaign is for 16 days against gender-based violence, and one is for SRHR, and they're not thinking about how the art comes into play.
How the art comes in. I want to stop you there and we take a break. When we come back, you have also represented someone who was sexually abused. And your art, your performance has a tendency to go into social spaces. You're no longer a musician. You're a cultural agent, and I want us to go to that space. So please don't go away. When we come back, we're going to go to those spaces. See you on the other side.
For most people in the groups that I've been on social media, people are in debt because the assumption was, especially in this influx of people that came in the past few months or the past year, as soon as I get there, I'll be fine.
Welcome back to our UK series, where I'm having a conversation with Edith WeUtonga Katiji, a singer-songwriter, Vice President of the International Federation of Musicians, and the President of Zimbabwe Federation of Musicians Union. You've received a number of awards. You've already mentioned that you got an award from Bloy. Talk to me about those awards and what they mean to you.
I've learned that an award is just an acknowledgement of your community, that we see the work that you're doing. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to come to the gong coming home, but just the nomination. You being nominated means they're paying attention to the work that you're doing.
They see you.
They see you. And I think we shouldn't downplay, if the nominees are, and then there's just the one winner, and we downplay who those nominees have been. And so I've been nominated and awarded for the NAMAs. I've nominated for the NAMAs for Outstanding Album, Outstanding Female. I never got an award, NAMA award for my music, but I got a NAMA award for my acting, because I'm also a theater and television actress, sometimes. And then I got awarded for the Bulawayo Arts Awards and nominated for the Zimas. And so I think in total I have about 9 nominations. I've just recently been nominated for the 50 Outstanding Women in Zimbabwe. So
it's a recognition, isn't it? And that's important.
Yeah.
You've also been recognized, Edith, through being a representative of a brand. Do you want to talk to us about that and what those brands are?
Before I even talk about the brands, I think the biggest, most recent award has been the award that I was given in Finland. So in February, I was awarded the Nirki. Nirki award is the feast. It's amazing how
I saw it, but I couldn't pronounce it, so I thought I wouldn't raise it.
It's called the Nirki award, the feast. The feast is given to individuals who advocate for musicians in the creative sector globally and within their local. And that for me was like, why am I getting this? They're like, oh, okay, we're recognizing you for this, and that. Where was it coming from? Because as the president of the Zimbabwean Musicians Union, through my vice presidency at the International Federation, I get to meet musicians unions from across the globe. And the federation is about almost 70 members globally, including the Americas, including Canada. The UK union is also in there. And so that's how I managed to get the cooperation for Zimbabwe and Finland. So we get mentorship from the Finnish Musicians Union to the Zimbabwean Musicians Union, because the union in Zimbabwe is 10 this year.
Oh, right.
And I happen to be one of the founding members that's still there. And those that have been there have moved on to other things, or they're focusing on other things. And I'm the only one remaining of course, with new people around me. And in it, have advocated for a better life, better working platforms for musicians in Zimbabwe. But not only that, doing the same thing for women in music in Africa and being invited to speak at different platforms for unions around. And then coming back to what, being recognized and being a brand ambassador, for example.
Yeah.
I've been a brand ambassador for Cell Insurance. And Cell Insurance is on insurances and how people must, insure their lives, their work. And I've been the brand ambassador for Doctors Without Borders and Traffic Safety Council.
Japan International
the
Cooperation
Japan
Agency.
International Cooperation Agency is one of my most recent ones. And how I got that, I think, during my time at school in London. One of my classmates is a Japanese lady pianist, and ours was a master's music in development. And because of lockdown, so we got a lot of time talking online, and her name is Kayo Yoshida. And we started talking about, so what's next after, always thinking, okay, this is done, so what's next? And I talked about the situation at home. There's a new curriculum that recognizes that there is visual and performing arts and there are children that are talented in that sector, but there isn't enough to support, the space, the teaching, the learning space. And so Kayo said, oh, okay, I was thinking we have so many of these instruments back home. Could we get them to Zimbabwe and start teaching? And this is a small, what someone would look at it and say, small piano. It's a pianica that one plays using, like you blow into it.
Yeah.
It's got a pipe. And so she collected the instruments in Japan. And then we made sure that the instruments got to Zimbabwe. And the first time that we went to Zimbabwe was in 2022 and in August. And we thought, right, we're going to Zim. And we got there, launched the project. And of course, for it to progress, you need partners, local partners. So brought in the Music Crossroads Academy, brought in the Midland State University, because that's where I'd come from, and then my children's former school. And the idea being, we've got those in tertiary, we've got those at college level, academy level, and then we've got those still at the grassroots. So we're still training, in particular, women in music. And then when they're done with the course, we've had our first group of graduates last year. When they're done, they get like 5 pieces of the instrument. And because most of them are teachers, they take it with them to the grassroots where they are teaching.
Fantastic.
So it becomes a rolling project, and they are teaching someone who's going to teach someone. And that's how I ended up, because, she's from Japan, Kayo. When she landed, she needed to let her embassy know that she's in the country. And they're like, so what project are you doing? How can we support you? And then there's Edith, who's like, oh, there's this, there's that.
So it sounds like you are more a social activist.
I am.
Women who are abused, trafficked people, refugees, education.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that space.
Maybe let me talk about my grandmother. Because my grandmother, Kadoma, where I was raised between grade 4 and grade 7, my grandmother's house, Iripa Corner. And Pakone Papo, you see everyone passing by. And sometimes, my grandmother and my grandfather would always, invite someone in. And in that house, it was a core house, 2 bedrooms, kitchen and dining. But the people that have passed through my grandmother's hands, and how Muguri
You were raised by your grandmother.
Yeah, between grade 4 and grade 7. And Muguri Wechibage would be shared to 10 people. Just like this cup of tea or a bottle of a soft drink would be shared to a lot of people. And so I think for me, that impacted on how I would always make other people's issues mine in a good way. And if someone is in need, I want to see how I can make a difference. So if someone is trying to get to the UK to school, for example, I'm thinking, how can we create a GoFundMe and they can get there? If someone needs a book to go to school, if someone needs someone to pay for their entry fee, and I end up being in all these spaces.
What do you get from that as a person? Talk to me. What's your payback there?
I think going to bed and knowing I did something different, and I saw the smile on their faces. Because I believe when someone comes to you and says, Trevor, I've got a challenge. And you're like, okay, this is how I can help you. Meet Edith. You've done the biggest, because Edith is going to be that channel to make a difference. And it doesn't come in the form of money. And I think I've learned in the long run, when I look back and I said, but how come I've had this good coming? Maybe because I've been paying it forward for a long time and
But
they didn't
of
know.
course, but of
Or I didn't
course.
even keep a tab on it. And I try to inculcate that in my children, in the people that I encounter, the youth. And I'm like, okay, you're a young woman, this is your situation, but can you become a victim of a situation that was? Or what can we do to move forward? And
Tell me, are they, I mean, being the person that you are there problems that you've encountered in the diaspora that you'd want to say to people out there that are watching, wanting to come in the diaspora, to say, hey, these are the issues that you need to be aware of?
I think to manage expectations, because the assumption is that the moment I cross over into the diaspora, life is good. The difference is that when you step into the diaspora, you work for every penny and you earn your money, and you need to manage your money well to be able to survive. And so for most people in the groups that I've been on social media, people are in debt because the assumption was, especially in this influx of people that came in the past few months or the past year, as soon as I get there, I'll be fine. And that's not the case. So what's the plan? You know, you're coming to the UK, but what is the plan? Because the difference is, when I'm in Zimbabwe, I can get away without paying rent or paying for my light, because ndatsanangura kuti ndichazobhadhara, or not even pay and move to the next space. But here, chances of you getting a 3-bed for a family of 5 without having the right amount of money annually that you're earning, you will not be able to get it. You understand what I mean? And so I think when we manage expectations and when we accept, or tikabvuma kudzidza kuti aiwa pandiri kudzwa papa handisi kushorwa, but I'm being told the reality that is on the ground, even for the family that's back home, then they get to understand that out there,
Money does not grow on trees.
You don't shake a tree and it falls or whatever. But that when you are given whatever you're given, be very grateful. I had that talk with my daughter yesterday. Be very grateful when you're throwing food in the bin. Somebody's not having it. They don't even have the privilege of a phone, a smartphone. So let's be grateful for the information that we're given. Let's be grateful for the platforms that we're given. And let's be full of gratitude when an opportunity is given to us.
Gratitude is the door to more opportunities.
Yeah, it is.
Tell me, as succinctly as you may, you are in these two positions as the president of the Zimbabwean Musicians Union, and as the vice president of the International Federation of Musicians. What are the key issues that musicians are dealing with?
I want to say that governments globally, the majority, are not paying attention to music as a sector that needs government support. While at the same time, anybody on their gadget or in their car or in their house, when they wake up, it's the music they go to, it's the radio they go to listen to music. There is not enough support for musicians. And right now in Romania, there's shutting down of the orchestra that's going on, and we're trying to campaign as an international federation to help stop that. And so I think globally, musicians are not being considered in the way that they should be considered. And the impact that they have on a society. When a baby is crying, you sing to them. Pamariro tinoimba to comfort each other. At a wedding, we play music and dance to music to celebrate. So how come it's not considered as something that is key to livelihood? kuti ingounza that happy hormone and the memory. You know, for someone who's got dementia and you play a song that their mother used to sing to them, or their wedding song, and memories start flooding back. But we do not consider that. And so it's important that, let's assume the governments have failed. They are failing the artists.
So what is to be done?
What can society do?
Okay.
Because we are a society of people, isn't it? And if the society can acknowledge and appreciate the musician, then that means that as a community, we're looking after each other. When you have my music, play it, but pay for it. You know, when I have a performance, why is it okay for you to go and pay £20 or £50 or £190 to watch that artist, but you will not do the same for your local or that musician from home? Why are businesses not using the art as a way to get into the communities that they want to, you know, to get into? Why are we not using that as a step into always connecting to the people that make our businesses? And in the very simple little ways, will make a difference. It starts with music appreciation. And I think where we come from, that is almost zero. Sadly, it is very sad.
But it's good to have somebody like you making the kind of polite noises for the society to recognize the importance of what you do. As we round off, I want us to go to that place where you led this fight against a colleague who had been sexually harassed. That's an important issue for me. Talk to me about that incident.
So it was a Sunday morning that I received a text message as I woke up, and there were messages, and this female musician sent an audio, and I think it was her partner as well sent an audio and said, this is what happened last night. So I called them and I said, okay, I'm so sorry about what has happened. What do you want to do? How do you want us to help? Because they were not even a member of the union, by the way. But, you know, like I was saying, I latch on to people's issues. And I called our women's desk chairperson and I said, Chiwo, this is what's happening. What can we do? And of course, the question first begins with, what does she want to do? And she wanted advice. So what do I do? And so I said, the best thing would be for you to go and report this issue, regardless of the fact that this is somebody that you probably eat and drink with and you spend time regularly with, but you need to make a report of this. And when you make that report, we take it from there. And so a report was made. And I remember getting phone calls about, why would you do that? Even from people that you'd expect would be empathetic about the issue. Some women, sadly, someone called and said, but why are you trying to take the butter from our table? Because once this guy is accused of this and this happens, it means whatever we're doing with him might stop, might not be funded, you know. And I said, we're going ahead. Oh, let's talk about this. I said, no, we're not talking about it. And so we called our friends at Women's Coalition to get us a lawyer. And then we got another lawyer, a friend of ours who's like a human rights lawyer, and said, we want to be ready. And so musicians, women in music went to court, I remember in Bari, and we were there, and the issue was heard. And then you get the press writing badly about it. And for me, the reason why that was like, let's push for it, is when you come from a space where something like that maybe has happened to you, and because people talked you down and you didn't end up getting the justice that you deserved. And we see an article about another female artist who made a case of this and was pulled aside to let's talk about it. In the end, they remain the person that anga achinyepa. And things could have happened to them. And
was it finally resolved?
This issue was finally resolved, and we won the case. I always love to say we won the case, and it spoiled relations with certain people, but that's fine. We hope that the lesson was learned and that nothing of the same sort will happen, or that they will do the same thing. And I'm glad that even with the person that did this, we talk about other artistic business, and he knows not to mess with Edith because she will take me through the...
So, Edith, people know not to mess up with you. You take other people's issues. You are a social activist. You've just been emotional right now because of the weight of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Where do you go yourself for help? Who is there for Edith? And your job as a musician is a very high pressure job.
Yeah.
How do you deal with mental issues?
The music comes first. And, I listen to levels that iPhone will tell you, this is too high. Because I'm a bassist, and so I want to hear the bass in my ears before I go to someone. And I have a friend, and when I go to Tendai, I just want to vent. And I love the fact that when I talk to that friend, she looks at things without bias. Zaka I did it wrong, she'll tell me, you're wrong. And I think sometimes what's important is to have friends that are not always clapping hands for us when we're doing, rubbish.
Wow. Wow. Edith, you are a beautiful soul. Beautiful soul. Thank you so much for creating the time to be with us. Our viewers out there love books, and I know you love books. You have written a chapter on examining the place of female musicians in Zimbabwe's music industry. Talk to me about what 3 books would you recommend to our book-loving audience out there?
I'll start with a book that was a set piece, I think, at some point, Crossing the Boundary Fence. And Crossing the Boundary Fence is a book for me, even in my young head, depicted society on varikumsoro nevaripasi and the difference between that color and that color. And for me, it was more than just the issues of color. I don't remember.
That's all right. We'll find it.
Yeah, we have to. But it is a book that, Crossing the Boundary Fence. I don't remember who wrote the book, but it was a book that I think made me start to think critically about issues and how there will always be a division. It might be between, people and where they come from, or how rich or how poor they are, or the color of their skin, for example, that there will always be that line. And sometimes people are towing that line in the decisions that they make that impact on the society. And that's why the book remains a book that I think of.
Which other book would you recommend?
I was in grade 3. It was my first novel to read in Shona, and the names are running away from me. The book is called Akanganyimo Avangarara. And it was written and set in Kadoma, where I was raised between grade 4 and grade 7. And so before I even lived with my grandmother, I read Akanganyimo Avangarara. And my mom said, oh, but I went to school with the other author because it was written by 2 guys. And again, it depicts things on how you think everyone is sleeping and it's just you. But there will always be someone who knows your issues. There will always be someone who knows that thing that you did in secret. And Akanganyimo depicts that.
The third book?
The third book is Losing My Virginity by Richard Branson. I read Losing My Virginity, and Richard Branson gave me a reason to be a risk taker. Because in that book, he talks about how he was managing Phil Collins and the gang. It speaks about him purchasing an island. Imagine that, an island. And failing as a manager, failing in that business, but not stopping. And today in my house, I have Virgin Media. Can you imagine? And this is someone who is a true story of, if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself and you try again. And my life has been about that. And it doesn't matter how I'm coming in as a musician, as a mother.
You said you keep on asking yourself, we're rounding off now.
Yeah.
What's the next big thing? What's the next big thing?
I think I want to involve myself more with communities of people that are in situations. Because in the process of working with the women that have been trafficked, my thesis for my master's was on my story as a woman and the challenges that I faced, and it's very personal. It's not published yet, but it's very personal. But having seen and experienced these women, my next step is my PhD should be on these communities and how the music, brings out that woman who's wearing her,
Mask.
her mask, and she's coming from that community that puts their veil like this and covers themselves. But when we sit together, they take it off and they tell you the things that,
Edith, thank you so much. We wish you all the very best. You are larger than life. You are beautiful, like I said. We all feel your presence in here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Allow me to turn to our viewers who are all over the world, who watch us every Monday. Remember, we are a weekly show. Thank you for watching the UK series of In Conversation with Trevor. We're out 7 a.m. on YouTube, Central African Time. To ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality conversations, I invite you to click on the subscribe button, the like button, and share as much as possible. You go down below this video, you'll find space for you to comment on what Edith has been saying. We'd love to hear what you think about the powerful things that Edith has shared. So until next time, thanks to you all, and cheers.